water and country. We pay our respects to elders past, present and future. Thank you for joining the Brolga Awards webinar. I would like to introduce Karina Groth from Tourism Business Solutions. Karina is an experienced Tourism Awards judge, mentor and submission writer. And I will now share my screen for you, Karina.
Thank you. And welcome everybody. I always love chatting with business owners in relation to our tourism awards. Just to give you a little bit of a background to me, I worked in the tourism industry for over 20 years across a range of different sectors, including the inbound sector, retail sector, and also then in destination management. For the last 10 years of my career in tourism, I had developed a niche in grant writing and project management related to both federal and state tourism grant programs. And all the way throughout my career, I've been involved in tourism awards. And I had to calculate this, Chrissy, and it made me feel like I was getting a little bit older. But it's been 21 years since I first forayed into tourism award programs. And I've been very, very lucky to have worked across a variety of different states and territories in supporting not only entrant workshops, but also I do judges training and briefings, as well as have had a hand in writing the actual criteria. I'm not going to tell you when because you might throw something at me. It wasn't recent. In terms of the actual questions and things like that. I'm no longer in the tourism industry directly. I've actually taken a foray out of that. However, the one thing that I do continue doing is in the awards space. So I welcome throughout the presentation, if you do have any questions, please feel free to prop them in the chat. I think, if it's okay with Chrissy, we might try and address them as we go along. Sometimes we forget them when we get towards the end, but we will have an opportunity for question and answers at the end also. So please feel free to actually even just keep a note of your questions, or as I said, pop them in the chat, and I will do my best to actually answer them. So probably first and foremost, one of the things that we're going to be looking at is your entrant guide. So if we move along to the next slide, Chrissy, if that's okay. All of you that have nominated will have had access to the entrance guide, which has been prepared by Tourism NT. And if there is one document that you read in preparing your submission, this is it. It's actually huge. And what it does is it gives you a guide as to how to answer all of the questions. And the bit that I'm most impressed with throughout this entrance guide is that it does give you a question by question, blow by blow response. Now, we're going to be talking, today's presentation is actually to go through some of the top line summary points from that entrance guide, and probably the key things that when I'm working with judges, we talk about a lot as things that we're actually looking for. So we're kind of giving you a little bit of a heads up today in terms of what judges really do focus on when they're looking at submissions. But please make sure, as nominees of the awards, you should have all received the entrance guide. If you haven't, please make sure you let Chrissy know, and she will get it across to you immediately. And grab your highlighter and your post-it notes if you're an old school person and you have a printed version, or do it digitally and check it out. There is also a whole series of videos available on Tourism NT's website under the Brolga Awards, and there's some really great quick 4 or 5 minute video snapshots of key questions. So you've got lots of support services out there. You've also got Chrissy, who can help you with any questions, and likewise Tourism NT is offering a mock judging review or draft review program. So I encourage you to put your hand up for that, because it's like going through and having a judge look at your submission and highlight the areas that you're doing well, but also those areas that you might be able to refine to just tweak your submission. So Some general tips in writing your submission. Now, you've got a word limit, which is 10,000 words. I would suggest that you want to get up to as close to that 10,000 words as you can. If your entry is sitting at 4,000 or 5,000 words, what's going to happen is your judge is actually going to be saying to you, we are seeking more detail. We would love more examples. We would love you to expand on these points. So try and make sure that you do use as close to that 10,000 word limit as possible in your responses. For those of you that have entered the awards in previous years and you're using your previous submission as a basis, which is actually a really sensible thing to do. Okay, good point there, Alana, about accessible tourism. That does have a different word criteria. Sorry about that. So for your mainstream general categories, you've got your 10,000 word limit. So if you do have your previous submission that you're using, please note that the questions actually have changed this year, okay? So they are similar, but some of them have actually been compacted. So you will find that you have not as many questions to spread your response out across, okay? And again, if you're using a previous submission, a general tip here is to ensure that you just really reread the question and make sure that you adapt your response to make sure it aligns with the question. Because team, we are going back to school here. We are being marked on how well we answer a question, okay? A lot of people feel that their business is being marked. It's not actually your business that is being marked. I know this sounds kind of strange and a little bit weird, but we are assessing what you write, that you tell us what you do, and we are assessing based on that because we don't know your business. A lot of us, they might have heard, a lot of the judges, some might have heard of it, but what we want to assume is that you're going to win the Brolgas and you're going to head through to your national awards, which fantastic, are being held in Darwin next year. So we want to have as many of our entrants up there as possible. So just make sure that you tell us as much as you can about your business, because that's how we will actually be marking you on how well you answer the question. So, technical aspects of writing your submission. We have a qualifying period, and you can only include activities that have occurred from the 1st of July 2022 through until the 30th of June 2023. So literally our financial year is the qualifying period for your submission. All right. If you are an event or festival, okay, what sometimes happens is we have events or festivals that will say, look, my event actually happened in the period, but my planning happened outside of it. That's entirely okay in that category because we would expect that to happen, okay? So long as you refer to that the planning was for the event or festival that was occurring within the qualifying period, okay? What we encourage you to do is make sure you read all of the questions really carefully. A lot of the questions have 2 or more parts, and you really do need to address all of them, okay? If you don't answer part of a question, you will actually lose marks because we can't judge you on it, okay? Because remember, we're judging your response to the question. One of the other things that judges absolutely love is to understand what is your essence, okay? What is it that drives your business? And this is what we call your brand personality. We love to see it. And I suggest you open in your introduction, which we will talk about in a moment, open in your introduction and you give us a sense of what is it that drives you? What is it that makes you get out of bed in the morning and go, I really want to do this, and keep telling that story throughout. Remember, in tourism, one of the great things we do is tell stories. So we want to hear your story and your business's story and let that personality come through at the start. One of the other great tips that we've got is, as you would be aware, if you've entered the awards before, if you're a first-time entrant, you might be hearing a lot about this portal that we have. what I suggest is you write your submission in a Word document or a Google Doc, and then you actually copy it into the portal, okay? Just in case something happens. The portal is very reliable these days, but it's always better to have a backup. And likewise, a Word or Google Doc copy of your submission is really good, particularly when it gets to the point. One of the services that the Brolgas are actually very unique in offering is a editing service that looks after looking at typos and grammar. So for that editor, it's actually really advantageous to have it in a Word or a Google Doc. But please familiarise yourself with the portal, okay? Make sure you know how to get around it. Judges actually assess your submission from within the portal, okay? And a top tip for you, reinforce throughout your submission how and why you contribute to the tourism industry. Remember, these are tourism awards, so we want you to share with us why you are part of that sector, particularly if you are entering into a category, for example, like retail services, or we've got our new adapted accessible tourism category, your festivals and events. Make sure you keep reinforcing that role that you play in terms of tourism, which comes back to visitation. All right, let's move along, Chrissy, thank you. All right, in crafting your answer, one of the key things to do, and I still suggest this, I'm very old school, so I love post-it notes and highlighters. You might like doing it digitally. You know, you can actually highlight and make notes on your digital versions of your questions. Is really use a highlighter, whether it be real or digital, to focus on keywords in the questions that you are being asked, okay? And what I suggest is when you start to craft your answer and draft your response, it's okay to actually start your answer by reiterating or repeating the question. Because what it not only does is it helps you focus on answering the question, but it also will reinforce to the judges that you are focused on answering that question. Because remember, judges mark you on how well you answer the question, all right? On each question, you will see in the portal and also in your entrance guide and in your category information when you download your category descriptor and your specific questions, you will see that there is what's called a response guide. And that gives you top tips on what to include in your response. So make sure you read them because it is super cool and it means that you will know what the judges are looking for, because judges are guided to look at those response guides when they are actually marking their responses. Another key thing is to avoid repetition of information. So sometimes as a judge, we will be reading a submission and we hear it at the beginning, we hear the same thing in the middle, and we hear the same thing at the end. What I suggest you do, there might be times where you have to reference, for example, your marketing strategies, but you might just talk top line in a couple of areas and leave the detail for your marketing question. So if you find yourself repeating or copying and pasting the same paragraph, I want you to think, where is the best spot for this? Is it here? Okay, because judges really don't want to read the same thing over and over again. So pick a winner. Pick the winning spot to actually put it, and that's going to be the most appropriate place. Okay. Also remind judges of your suitability for a category. So if you are a unusual type of business in a category, keep using the language. For example, I'm going to use an example that's not relevant to you guys, okay, and I'm choosing it because it's probably not relevant, but imagine you are a houseboat operation and you would probably enter into unique accommodation. What I would encourage you to do is keep reinforcing your houseboat business as a unique accommodation business, okay? So keep reminding judges. Likewise, if you are, for example, and we often get some amazing entrants in these categories from the Brolgas, ecotourism or adventure tourism or your tour and transport, If, for example, you're going in the ecotourism category, make sure you are reinforcing, for example, if you are a tour and transport operator going in that category, I want you to not talk so much just tour and transport operator. I'd love you to keep using language around ecotourism or, for example, adventure tourism, if that's where you're choosing to go. This ties in with your brand personality. Keep making sure that we're going through that. Okay, so top tip there, remind judges of your suitability for the category, okay, and that is also reinforced in the entrance guide that goes through the specifics of your category. So tell your story with passion and enthusiasm. Draw your judges closer, and the way that you can do that is by using tense, okay, or person. So we and our, as opposed to using third person that talks about the business did A, B, and C. Okay, so this is where I think Laura just popped up a question about how you actually inject this into who you are. And we might move on to that next slide, Chrissy. I'm thinking we might be heading towards our introduction. If not, we will address it. We will come back to your question there, Laura, and I'll make sure that I cover that off for you. Okay, we're going to talk a few more general things in relation to the submissions first. So laying out your response. I'm the sort of judge, speaking just for me, but also for other judges I know, above all include measurement data. One of the things that we are seeing this year with the slight change and adaptation to the questions is it feels like there is a slightly reduced emphasis in the questions around proof, what I call proof points, okay? However, so what that means is that new entrants may actually just use a lot of words and storytelling. So top tip, guys, if you want to set yourself apart, make sure you keep upping the ante in including measurement data. So anytime you write a response, I want you to think, how can I prove it? Think, so what? What does this mean? For example, if you were to say, we provide great customer service, let's face it, every business in tourism says they provide great customer service, yeah? But if you were to say, we provide great customer service, which can be confirmed by a 85% word of mouth or referral rate, the judge goes, whoa, tick, that's amazing. So what I'd like you to do is include measurement data. Wherever you can, throw in some statistics to actually prove your success. And this is some examples on how you can actually do it. You could use bar charts to show comparison data year on year. You could include that as an image, okay, particularly when it comes to talking about your business planning or your business growth. You could use pie charts to show your target market share, okay, as a total of your entire business. You can use tables to demonstrate goals versus strategies versus outcomes. Okay. And a really good thing to do is use percentages to show change. Okay. It's a really good tool, but what I would challenge you to do is also include, I call it a real figure to give context, because 100% increase on one is actually only 2. So does it mean that 100% increase is a great response? Could be, might not be. So just give us extra information for us to go, wow, this business is really nailing it. And I would like to assure you, all of your judges sign confidentiality agreements and non-disclosure agreements. So we don't share anything that we read. We don't make copies of any of your information, and we don't take notes on any of your information. All of our feedback is provided into the portal, which is a secure system. And to be honest, after we've read a couple of submissions, we honestly can't remember what you turned over or anything like that. You become really focused on the next submission. Okay, so just to give you security around how we treat your information, it's with the utmost of respect. All right. From a formatting perspective, we've talked about opening your response with reiterating the question. Another top tip is to use paragraph spacing to create airtime and white space. So imagine your judge might be reading 20 submissions, and it can get like really heavy going if when we open the document it looks like a operations manual and there's lots and lots and lots and lots of information and no airtime. So please use paragraph spaces to create some airtime. It's almost like you're giving the judge the opportunity to take a breath between moving on to the next piece of information that you're providing. We also suggest that you use subheadings and bold them. Link them back to the question. So again, in the judge's mind, you're showing that you're attempting to really answer that question clearly. And likewise, if you have lots of content, okay, you can bold some keywords because that will also draw the judge's eye to key points. And sometimes what happens is judging happens as part of a team. So there might be 3 people in your judging team, and there is generally a lead judge who will actually then kind of consolidate and work with the individual judges who have actually looked at your submission. If there is an instance where there is judges that are a little bit conflicted, sometimes what happens is submissions go back for a rejudging. And the use of subheadings and bold keywords, I find as a judge really, really good if ever I have to do a rejudging, because it actually it highlights for me how the entrant has tried to respond to the question. Also check your font size to make sure that it's readable. Your judges are going to be assessing your submission, sometimes on a laptop, sometimes on a desktop computer, but make sure that you're using a 11 or 12 point font and that it is consistent throughout the submission. Likewise with colour of text. Sometimes we find people go between different colours. Subheadings and things like that, great to use different colours, but in the main body, try and keep it looking nice and simple. Thank you, Chrissy. Tables. Now, I'm going to talk a lot about tables, but we felt that it deserved its own little slide at the moment. Tables are an exceptionally good way for you to demonstrate your information. And it's not uncommon for businesses to confuse goals, strategies, and tactics. So one of the things that we wanted to do was go through and give you an example of the way to view your table and the way to view your goals, strategies, and activities, okay? So the entrance guide actually has a lot of information in here, and it also provides you examples of formats of tables that you can actually use. But to simplify it, what we'd like to clarify for you is goals equal what do you want to achieve? Okay, so if you are for example, festival and event, maybe your goal was to increase attendance by 15% at our festival from 1,000 attendees in 2021-22 to, I can't do my calculations now, let's say 1,500 attendees in the qualifying period, okay? So what did you want to achieve? Did you want to increase revenue in your business? Did you want to increase, if you're a restaurant, did you want to increase the average spend per customer that was actually coming into your restaurant? If you are a tour operator, did you want to increase the average occupancy per tour? If you are an accommodation provider, did you want to increase your average room rate or your average length of stay? So what I want you to think about is, what are the specifics in relation to your business that you wanted to achieve? From a marketing perspective, did you want to achieve a certain return on investment for your marketing spend? Did you want to increase your social media followings by X%? Okay, so your goals are the what. What did you want to achieve? Judges love to see that you're strategic, okay, and that you had a plan, even if your plan kind of happened along the way. Tell us about what actually happened, because let's face it, we've all been in business and we know that sometimes opportunities come up and we jump on them. So share that those were opportunities. Your strategy is your how are you going to achieve it, okay? So this is that execution side of things. What are the things that you needed to do in order to increase the average spend at your restaurant, okay? Did you have to train your staff on how to ask the question, would you like another drink? Or would you like garlic bread with that, okay? What were the things that you had to do to achieve that goal? If you're an accommodation provider and one of your goals was to increase that average night stay, how were you going to do it? Did you create more packages that were a 2-night stay as opposed to a single night stay? Okay. And that ties into your tactics as well, the actions and activities. Now, sometimes what you'll find is it can get a bit confusing when you've got the strategies and the tactics in there. Sometimes people morph those into just one heading, okay? They'll pick strategies or tactics because it all becomes that how, okay? So if you see those words and you're going, oh, I'm a bit confused about all of that, just think, both of them are kind of the hows and the to-dos, but the tactics are that really, really grassroots, okay? Your outcomes are a measured benefit of the activities, okay? And again, I talk about measure, measure, measure. Make them quantifiable where possible. And I'm going to give you a marketing example here. Often we will read that somebody had a part of their distribution strategy for marketing was to produce a pamphlet or a flyer. And they will then tell us, so for example, the goal might be to increase our reach into the local market by distributing a flyer through the local visitor information centres. Okay, just an example. The strategy might be we will, create a branded publication that communicates X, Y, Z. The action is you're distributing that through the visitor centre or other distribution networks within your town. Sometimes people will tell us that the outcome of that is that they produce 10,000 brochures. That's actually the strategy. We're going to distribute 10,000. The outcome, I want you to link it back to how did it impact your business? So how do you know it worked? So of those 10,000 brochures, do you know that you generated $10,000 worth of revenue? Okay, for your accommodation or your restaurant or your tour operation. So try and think about outcomes as being linked to how you grow your business, okay, numbers based. Thank you, Chrissy. So submissions, we've got some image information here, and I think there was some information in the chat as well on this. So I might just actually have a quick look at the chat here in case it was related to that. But while I'm pulling that up, the submissions can include up to 25 images with captions, and we suggest that you actually use all of those, okay? So images, you can have 6 words for your caption, and judges will actually look at that caption to kind of get in their head what it's actually talking about. So instead of making the caption, for example, question 5, environmental sustainability, it might be worm farm, okay, or Indigenous employees. Be specific about that caption on the image. Make sure your images really sing. Make them really amazing. Sometimes we find Entrants will do before and after photos. If you're doing before and after photos, for example, if one of your innovations has been a refurbishment or an enhancement to your rooms, if you're an accommodation provider, make sure it's really, really clear what you're showing us, and that think about the impact of that picture. So what I'd like you to think about is headline images that you use in your business that really sell your business well, okay? One of the things we are finding this year, Chrissy and I were chatting about it earlier this morning, is that a lot of entrants are using images to add additional information for the judges to see. Now, remember, images are purely there to support and almost provide a verification to a claim that you are actually making in your document. So, for example, if you're asked about a customer journey, so when you're doing your customer experience response, maybe one of the things that you share with us is that you have a customer journey. Tell us about that customer journey actually in the response to your submission, okay? But what you might do is include as an image a visual. It might look like a little road, okay? But don't rely on the judges to read volumes of information in the little road, okay? It's purely the judge will look at it and go, tick, yep, they've actually got their customer journey, okay? So the image, your question should stand alone without the judge looking at the image. The image is purely a, yep, great, it's a verification tool, okay? Try and also load your images as you go. Don't try and load the 25 images on the last day, because sometimes everybody's trying to do that and it can mean that the portal is a little bit slow. All right, so I've just pulled up the chat here. So Praggy has asked, can we upload pictures with the written submission in the portal, not the hero images, but the supporting image, for example, our marketing strategy? Yes, you can. So your pie charts and bar graphs and things like that can all be uploaded in the relevant questions. Yes. I hope that's answered your question. Do judges want to know, Laura's asked, who's writing the submission in the intro? Should we lightly introduce ourselves to make a connection or leave it anonymous? Do you know what? Sometimes it's actually really cool, Laura, to read that. It's actually, you know, like if it's your business and you're going, hey, you know, I'm Laura and, you know, from XYZ business, and I'm really excited because this has been my dream for my entire life to run this business. You know, it does make it really a great connection. Just make sure that you actually continue that theme all the way through the submission. The really hard thing about that is if it is just you, yourself, and I, saying I feels really strange when you're reading it. So you might introduce it you might do it in the introduction, but then you might revert to a we or our style language in the remaining questions. So it just distances you a little bit, but keeps the judges closer, okay? Okay, Praggy's got her hand, got the hand up there for a question. Was there another question typed in there, or did you want to ask? Sorry. Oh, ignore the hand raise. Okay, sorry. All right. Okay, then Sarah's asked, can an A4 page with a title say 5 images, testimonials, infographics with their own 6-word caption collaged across the whole page be counted as one image hyperlinked in the 10th text? So if it is saved as one image and hyperlinked and the judges open it as one image, it will be counted as one image. And we do actually recommend collages, but make sure that you're not putting like 30 images on there as a collage, because it can get really hard to see. So make sure that the images are still big enough that judges can actually see, but that is a very good way to get some extra images in there. All right, did that answer those questions? Yeah. All right. Okay. Chrissy, thank you. So supporting tools, we've chatted a lot about the entrant guide. So top tip, read it, download it, and have it there next to you to start with. And I think let's get into, and don't leave it till the last hour. The great thing is, guys, that you're actually starting now. We put a couple of notes in there. I don't know if you've ever heard of when people write things, you can either be a fly by the seat of your pantser or a planner. So consider how you write, okay? With Tourism Awards submissions, because you need to have facts in there, I want you to also think about who you need to help you gather information. You might need to talk to your accountant accountant to get some financial information. You might need to talk to, if you have marketing support, a marketer, you might need to talk to them to get data. You might need to talk to your landscaper or your mechanic. If you're a tour and transport operator, you might want to chat to them about different things they've been doing to service your vehicles to make them more environmentally friendly or reduce emissions. They might be able to give you some data. So start thinking about the way that you work best. Given that all you guys are on this call, I would suggest that you're planners because you're starting to get ready, okay? But plan your responses and start now. You've got submissions due on the 30th of August, so you've still got actually plenty of time to get these together, okay? But get started, you know. If you haven't already started writing it, maybe set it in your calendar to start on Monday. We've just had a question here. Do the judges prefer to read an answer to the question that is scripted the same sequence, item by item, in the Brolga entrance guide for ease, or is it totally okay to answer the question as long as all the court? Alana, great question there. I would suggest we prefer to read it as it is scripted in the same sequence as the questions. It makes it easier for us to go, yep, they've answered, yep, they've answered, yep, they've answered, okay? In saying that, if you choose to go off that thing, use things like your subheadings and whatnot to show that you're actually covering the key points, okay? Judges will read it and they'll get it. It's just whether it's easier for them to find the information or harder. All right, now, guys, I reckon this is a huge opportunity. We're getting into the meat of things now. The business impact statement. Now, it's a non-scoring question and it is limited to 250 words. What I'm seeing is entrants are going not applicable. Now, I'm going to throw a challenge out there to any of you that, if we think of a really simple thing, I hazard a guess most of you, given what we've had coming out of COVID and the impacts on the international market, you may have pivoted towards the domestic market. If we look at what's happened with inflation and interest rates and the pressure that it's putting on households, you could even be talking about here that if you might have seen your domestic market shrink or constrain a little bit, okay, you could actually talk about that in here. Okay, you might have had a significant impact that one of your key staff members who was a driver in your business left, which has made it really difficult to actually operate because you couldn't replace them. Or maybe you are a small business operator and it meant that you became fully operational again. So the strategic things started to slide. If you are a big business, maybe you've had some funding constraints or issues that have come down there. So in this, even if you think, oh, I really haven't had anything, because everybody focuses on floods, fires and pandemics, I want you to think about what's happened in the key markets that you're working in and has something impacted you, and tell us about it, okay? Include some measurement data. If you've had a downturn or a loss or a decline, give us a snapshot there, because this gives us context when we start reading forward and go, wow, these entrants actually, they had a challenge they had to overcome this year. This is exciting. I want to see how they've overcome it. Top tip, take some time on this one. And let's move on to our introduction. So this is the section where you can discuss the history of your business prior to the qualifying period. So you can refer to awards that you received 5 years ago. You can refer to the fact that you started the business 15 years ago. You can give us a bit of a timeline of how your business has evolved, okay? And likewise, if you're a festival or event, you know, maybe you are an institution in your area and your event has been operating in some form for 25 years or 50 years. We love, as a judge, to connect with that feeling, okay? And because you can then show us, if you're a festival or event, that you started with 100 people coming to your race day, which is making that up, and now, wow, it's like actually a picnic day on your calendar each year. So we would love to actually share in the journey and the growth of your business and the challenges. We absolutely encourage you to provide a map to give location context. And this is particularly relevant because we would love to see you guys getting through to the National Tourism Awards. And your judge that comes from Tasmania may never have heard of where Dunedoo is, okay? So give us a map to show us where you're, or Humpty-Doo, actually, it's Humpty-Doo up in the Territory, isn't it, of where you're located, okay? How long have you been operating? And if you were a new tourism business, judges love to know what motivated you to start. This is where you can share your passion, your love. You can give us your background, life before tourism. How did you end up where you are now? It's also good to give us stats around things like how many customers or attendees have patronised your event. If you're an accommodation provider, we love to see accommodation that has grown and developed, and maybe you've grown from being a 2-star property to a 4-star property. Maybe you've gone from being purely domestic to hosting international visitors. So tell us about any significant shifts that have happened since opening. And it's always good to give us a context on the number of team members that you have, because it will give us an understanding of the size of your business. And for some of those categories, for example, tour and transport operators, it's really relevant because it speaks to your eligibility in the category that you have chosen, whether it's major or tour and transport operators. Likewise, with festival and events, if you're going in major festivals, events, or the festivals and events category, it's good for us to have an understanding of that number because it proves you're in the right category. Your introduction is your opportunity to tell the judges what you do. But the language that we use as judges is tell us about your products, your services, and your experiences. Okay, so when we're talking about your products, it's the nuts and bolts thing that entrants can actually participate in, or like it's tangible. What can they do with you? What can they touch? Your services are those little extra things. For example, if we were a tour and transport operator, it might be that we actually have multilingual guides who actually speak 6 different languages. Okay, it's an amazing service that we offer to meet the needs of our international market. Our experiences are how people feel when they're with us. For example, if you're an ecotourism or an adventure operator, when you're taking them up to, I'm thinking walking trek, okay? We're trekking the Larapinta Trail up to Mount Sonder, and we are heading up there under headlamp in the dark to see sunrise. How are we making people feel? These are once in a lifetime experiences that we're providing. So make sure, really important, guys, and this goes to Alana's point about item by item, make sure you answer with subheadings to show the difference between how you treat your product, service, and experiences. And if you go, I'm not sure where it fits, is it an experience, is it a service? Just look at how many you've got in each and pick a winner, okay? Pop it in a spot. This introduction, it's really good also to share with the judges what your unique selling points are. If you are the only tour operator who walks up Mount Sonder under headlamp, tell us that. If you are the only festival and event that actually has boats that goes up a dry riverbed, then tell us, okay? Just trying to think of relevant examples to the territory, okay? Tell us about your unique selling points. It might just be at a local level that is unique, but if you are the only person that is doing this nationally or globally, wow, that's super cool. Let us know. We also like to see your pricing, okay? Give us the nuts and bolts. Imagine you were talking to a customer and they said to you, tell me about what you have to offer. So go into detail here. And this is a great opportunity to include supporting images. Judges like to see what it is that you're offering, okay? And I think it was Laura's point earlier about getting that personality through. If your business is you and your partner, or there's a team of a few of you, or there's a team of 100 of you, it's a great opportunity also. If you want to put that photo in here, you can, and it gives us a sense of who we're talking to. So top tip, make it clear to the judges that you're entering the correct category, but just Tell us what you do. That's what we want to know here. Thank you, Chrissy. Okay, business development. So this is a three-part question, and this is my favourite question in the whole submission, because I love looking at the submission and going, wow, this business has had some challenges that it's really overcome. They've been really creative to do that, and they're doing really well. These guys are going to be around in 10 years' time. And this is where you can communicate more of your brand personality and your business personality by sharing your vision, your mission, and your values. So up front, I would absolutely open with those three things, okay? Tell us what drives you, what is your purpose, okay? And then I would suggest that you use what's called, or I suggest you use a table, okay? You're going to be asked around, now, I want to preface something here, that different categories might have different orders to the questions to what I'm actually going through now, okay? So please make sure you refer back to your category descriptor to make sure that you are following the correct question guidelines, not following this, because it will vary category to category, okay? But you can use this information in those different questions you have. So this business development question actually asks about any new innovations or enhancements that you've actually made in your business in the qualifying period. So an innovation doesn't have to be a global innovation. It can be specific to your business, okay? It might be a new method or a new way of doing things or a new idea you had or a new product that you've actually introduced in response to market changes. An improvement or enhancement, pretty straightforward. That's about making something better, okay? What have you done to adapt? So judges really do want to understand your goal. What was the innovation or the improvement that you did? But what's even more important, I know when I'm judging, is I want to know why you did it. Was there a problem that you were trying to solve? And then also share with us the research that you used to inform the change. For example, maybe you created a new product because when you were on your fishing expedition up off Darwin, your clients actually said to you, you know what, we'd really actually like to go fishing for this type of fish. And you previously had just been doing another type of fish. And you found that you were getting more and more questions about it. So you thought, okay, I'm actually going to offer a new tour. We might just do it one day a week and see how it goes, and we'll trial it. But you could tell us about the fact that the research that you used was from direct customer feedback. And then what has happened is you actually went away and you created the new fishing product for the yellow and blue and red finned spike. I don't know, I'm making that up. It's probably not a fish. It's not a fish. And this is then what's actually happened. The strategy was how you executed it, okay, like we talked about before. What were the steps and the actions that you went through to actually make it happen? And we want you to think about this from a range of perspectives, okay? Economic, was there anything that you had to do to influence how revenue and expenditure was treated in your business, okay? It might be environmental changes that you've actually made. For example, if you are a fishing charter vessel, maybe you have actually changed your motors from being petrol engines to being electric engines, okay, because one of your goals was actually to reduce the emissions into the environment. Okay. For example, also it might be marketing innovations or enhancements. Maybe you've done something really differently. Maybe you had to shift markets because your international market has been slow in returning post-pandemic. You might have community or social innovations. Human resource staffing. Think about what you've done with your team. Did you create a series of new permanent part-time roles to give your team security? Did you employ a customer service manager where you didn't have one before? And also then operationally. I like an operational heading because it kind of means you can sweep everything in there that doesn't fit elsewhere. So that's talking about what they were and why you've put those innovations or improvements into place. Part B looks at the outcomes of them, okay? So tell us what happened. You know, your new fishing, your new charter that went to your red, yellow and blue finned spike, how did it go? Was it a dismal flop, but you gave it a go? Or have you found that you've been generated X amount of revenue and Y number of passengers on the trip since you launched it? Part C of this question asks you about tourism excellence, and we really love to hear about any award wins that you have, any accreditation programs that you are part of, and also things like your contribution to the industry. So if you are members of your local tourist associations or any local committees, and if you can, try and measure what these involvements have actually contributed to your industry or to your business. So top tip here, in the outcomes section, provide real figures in conjunction with percentages to demonstrate growth or decline. Thank you, Chrissy. All right, moving along to marketing. So judges really want to know, who are your customers? And this is where we talk about target markets. We'd love to see that you have a strategic approach to this. And what we mean by that is that you understand you don't have a shotgun approach and you're just going, I'm talking to everybody. We love to know that you have determined that your target audiences or your customers are A and B. Okay, so things to consider are, where do they come from? Are they international, interstate or intrastate customers? And this is where you can actually provide a pie chart to actually show the percentage that each makes of your total business. And you could then drill down, you know, where they come from within that. You know, you could tell us about age demographics. You could talk, so particularly you might deal with the seniors market, or you might deal with just the youth market, or it could be that you know that 35 to 55-year-olds are your target audience because they purchase travel for these reasons that you match with them. Okay, it could be that they are a business traveller, a leisure traveller, or they could be families. So you could segment your markets up into the type of traveller that they are. We also like to know, are they new or are they existing? And for some of you in that post-pandemic climate, maybe you created some new markets because you had to. So inform the judges about that. It's always really great to mention if your target markets align with those of Tourism NT's plans or Tourism Australia's plans. So reference back to those plans if you can. And a table is a really good way to format this response. You might have one column that talks about your target market, i.e. international, interstate, intrastate, business, leisure. You think about how you segment your markets. You can have a little column for, are they new or existing? You can have another column for, what do they want? Okay. And then you could have a column for how to match your products. There's a really good example of a table format in your entrance guide. So check that out if you want to see visually how that actually can work well. Thank you, Chrissy. Into our marketing question, continuing, we want to know as judges also how you know they're your target markets, okay? So what research did you use to determine this? Think about it. Could have been visitor surveys, the International Visitor Survey. You could have looked to that for direction. It could have been attendance at trade shows. It could be that you actually have a distribution network through travel agents or inbound tour operators, and they might have given you data on what that market is actually doing. It could be that you conducted internal surveys. So tell us about the research that you actually used. It could be that you have your own sales reports. It could be previous customers that came to your business. And likewise, it could be your digital support, you know, data that sits at the back end of your social media or Google Analytics. Tell the judges, this is about you being strategic, why you have identified these customers, because the research has told you that they are a likely match for your business. Okay. Your marketing strategies are all around what you actually, or how you communicate with your customers and why you choose that channel. Okay. So this is really, think about your brand identity, and you could use images in here as well to show the judges examples of how you market, but we want to know how you communicate with them. Do you use print? Do you use digital channels? Do you use social media channels? What's your online presence like? Do you use inbound tour operators and agents, so more traditional distribution channels? Tell us about your marketing strategies and why you picked those, okay? When you have to talk about measurement, we spoke about earlier, link your results to conversion, i.e. how many customers or attendees have actually been generated as a result of that marketing activity, not the execution. Okay. Thank you, Chrissy. All right, our customer experience question. I know you guys will all absolutely nail this because this is what we do well. It's all about customer service. So customer service is about what you do, what is generally expected by visitors and guests. The customer experience is how visitors feel about your service. So what goes over and above? And this is where you can use amazing case studies and stories to actually share an example of how you have delivered over and above and created an amazing experience. So this question is broken up into multiple parts. Part A, I'd highly recommend talking about your customer service philosophy or values if you have it. But then it's time to get practical, okay? We love to understand what systems and processes you have in place to deliver great service. And we want you to think about pre-arrival, whether it be on tour, at event, at accommodation, pre-arrival, when they're actually with you, and then after, okay? So tell us about any standard operating procedures that you have in place. And it might be that you have, this is where we talked about our customer journey, our customer experience journey, but it's important not just to kind of list that you have these procedures. We want you to explain to us how they have improved customer service. So why are they relevant? Okay. Think also about the different type of customers you have in your business. For example, the way that you service travel agents or inbound tour operators might be different to how you service customers that are coming to you directly. So share with us maybe the different approaches you have for those different markets. A really good tool here to have proof points is about things like your investment in staff training and your team and how you measure outcomes. For example, if you ran some customer service training, it would be really great for us to hear that 100% of your team participated in the training, and as a result, you have seen an increase in customer satisfaction from 75% to 83%. Okay, so you can give us indicators of growth. Thank you, Chrissy. Part B of this question is asking to understand how you measure feedback, how you measure customer experience and customer service. So very simply, judges are looking to understand your feedback mechanisms. What do you do in order to know that you're doing a good job? Do you procure online reviews, Google reviews, TripAdvisor reviews, all of those sorts of things? Do you have feedback forms? Do you get agent feedback? Do you look to repeat clients? All of those ways that you actually measure your service. And we love to understand who looks after that and how they actually manage it. Do you have a complaint handling process? That's always a really good one as well. And this is where you could include an example of an issue that came up through some feedback, and you could tell us how you actually overcame that and what you did as a result. A really good indicator here as a proof point is if you have industry standards that you work towards. So, for example, if you have industry bodies, so, in the caravan and camping sector or the accommodation sector, often you'll have competitive sets that you're dealing with. So it's really good for us to understand how you're competing in that space. Show us what those benchmarks are and give us some measured results. And the last part of this question is actually about how inclusive you are, your inclusive practices. I would suggest think really broadly. Go back to your customers, your target markets. Who are those people? Okay. And then think about how you ensure that you are inclusive in all aspects of your business. And again, there are some great tips in your entrance guidelines on ways that you can actually do that. Okay. Thank you, Chrissy. And our last question. All right, I'm going to give you a top tip here, guys. Going to mix it up a little bit. I'd suggest you write this first, okay? And the reason for that is that this is the last question in your submission. It is typically answered poorly, and it's worth 10 marks. So if you can nail this, it might be the difference between winning gold and not even placing, okay? So I'd write this one first to make sure you nail it and then go back to the start and keep writing through, okay? But it's about responsible tourism. And we're wanting to understand the what, why, and how you are a responsible tourism operator, and then the impacts or the results from your initiatives. So I'd like you to think about it as a 4-part question. Part 1 being environmental responsibility. So tell us about your water conservation measures. Now, if you are an accommodation provider, you might be able to talk about things that you've done from an infrastructure base. If you are a tour operator, maybe it's how you actually operate when you're out on tour conserving water or teaching your clients about water conservation. Okay. Likewise, when we talk about waste management, we're looking at the reduction in waste, or do you recycle? So share with us, this is a very practical response, share with us the things that you actually do to make an impact, okay, or make a difference to the physical environment. It could be about fuel or energy consumption. We talked earlier about cruise boats that maybe have transitioned from fuel engines to electric engines or battery-based engines, okay? Energy consumption could be about your use of solar energy, and even things like wildlife conservation. Share with us those practical things that you do in your business, but we love to see measured outcomes. So, for example, if you have actually transitioned from fuel engines on your boat to electric or battery-based ones, we would love to see the reduction in emissions, put a number on it, the reduction in fuel consumption, and how it's been positive for the environment. Part 2 of this question is about your social contribution. So we're looking at what you do with the local community. This might be around things like, do you package with other businesses in your area? Do you sponsor local community events or festivals? Do you make donations? Do you have students that come for work experience? Do you provide mentoring to young people coming into the industry? And again, try and put hours that you contribute to this. Maybe you have a volunteer program. If you're a festival or event, most have volunteers. Tell us about the volunteer hours. And if you had to pay for that time, how much would that be worth? Okay. Part 3 is about your economic responsibility, and this can be local purchasing. It's really easy to put a number on how much you spend in your local community. Could be the wages that you contribute, put a dollar value on it. And all of us should be able to calculate the multiplier effect of your business. So I want you to think, if you no longer operated, what would be lost from the local economy? And you'll be able to get some great research from Tourism NT in terms of what the average spend per visitor is in your market. And so you could then calculate, you maybe have them on a one-day tour, okay? But you know that international visitor on average spends this amount of time in the country and they spend this per day. So you can actually calculate out your contribution. And part 4, we're looking at your ethical responsibility. So look at your support of your Indigenous communities and connections, how you actually partner with those amazing people. Look at your cultural and historical preservation angles. If you're a tour operator and there's some of the things that you celebrate, share with us, and likewise animal welfare. So top tips here, measure all the impacts, and yeah, just tell us that you are, because we know that you are, show us that you are a really responsible operator in those 4 spaces. Thank you, Chrissy. All right. So that's kind of a blow-by-blow of the questions. I do apologise. We have gone a little bit over time, so I do appreciate if you do need to leave. But a couple of top tips for you here in terms of your support services. Get your submission ready for your mock review. Absolutely, get it in. We've got some judges who are eager to actually look at those and help you and provide feedback. Likewise with your proofreading for spelling, typos and basic grammar. So you've got some deadlines in there. If you are finding that you are struggling on those, I hope you don't mind me saying, Chrissy, but please reach out to Chrissy and we'll see what we can do to support you there. Submissions are due on the 30th of August, and then hey team, get your party frock and your tie and your top hat out for Saturday the 11th of November in Darwin, because that's going to be the party of all parties. Thanks, Chrissy. All right, and then there's Chrissy's details. So happy to field any questions that you may have. So how long does it take to get the results from the mock review if submitted on Wednesday? Look, it can take a couple of days to turn it around, Alana. We do work as quickly as we can on getting those done for you. Yeah, just if everybody lands them on Wednesday, then it becomes a bit tricky because there might be a few sitting on our desks, but we do work as quickly as possible.
Another question that was about if there's outcomes that are still coming through in July, August, how to, sort of say what your predictions are of your outcomes instead of possibly being facts.
Yeah, look, good question. And I think, judges are realistic about if you've executed a new strategy in, June, that there's not going to be outcomes. And it's okay to actually say, we don't have outcomes because it is a brand new strategy. If you have indicative results, you could tell us that. I wouldn't forecast anything because forecasting is, it's guesswork. So judges want to rely on facts and they'll look at it and they'll go, yeah, they're not going to have outcomes on that. So we'll be really understanding about that. If you've got indicative, tell us indicative results, but just say, yeah, unable to provide as it's a new strategy.
Wonderful. Any other questions from those who've joined us? Okay, well, I will thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Karina, for sharing. Much appreciated.
Thank
you. The recording will go on the Brolga Awards website, so it can be, reviewed or at a later date by you or others. All right, well, thank you again for everybody joining this webinar.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chrissy. Thanks, everyone. Good luck.